At 6:58 a.m. on December 26, 2004, a major earthquake occurred off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. The 9.0 magnitude quake triggered a massive tsunami that ravaged islands throughout the Indian Ocean, resulting in as many as 300,000 dead or missing. The coastal areas of the surrounding countries were also devastated by this unprecedented disaster. The Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, quickly took action to provide aid to victims of this disaster. JICA dispatched Japan Disaster Relief, JDR teams to the affected countries where they launched operations to assist on the same day the earthquake and tsunami struck. This marked the beginning of JICA's ongoing involvement in the international effort to assist the people and governments affected by this disaster. Banda Aceh, Indonesia, being close to the epicenter of the earthquake, was among the hardest hit in the region. Approximately half of the city suffered severe damage when water covered land as far as 5 kilometers from the shoreline. Some areas recorded massive waves 35 meters high. But even in Banda Aceh, the JDR medical team was able to go into action as early as December 30th. JICA's first medical team arrived in Jakarta on December 30th, and after initial briefings, reached their designated worksite in the Lam Ara district of Banda Aceh. The JDR medical team assembled its tents and in a short time was ready to begin caring for the numerous disaster victims. On January 2, 2005, medical treatment began and disaster victims seeking medical attention started to line up. Many of the initial patients had already sought out medical treatment, but had not received satisfactory care the first time. Several days after the team started administering medical care, the number of patients dropped temporarily, but then started to rise. These new patients were coming from farther away, which attested to the widespread destruction the disaster had caused. The JDR medical team was then dispatched to a new location, while members of the Japan Self-Defense Forces continued to operate the medical station. The station was expanded to accommodate more patients and was also equipped to prevent infectious disease. JICA sent a support team to assist in managing the facility and to help with interpreting needs. In Thailand, Phuket Island and many of the smaller surrounding islands suffered heavy damage. A JDR rescue team was dispatched as quickly as possible to search for missing persons. Medical, helicopter, and body identification teams were also dispatched to the area. The JDR rescue team arrived in Phuket on December 29, 2004. After making initial arrangements with the local military commander, they toured the surrounding area. Due to a lack of accurate information, rescue workers had to search for missing persons based on their professional experience and intuition. The team also sought information from local residents. On December 30th, rescue activities began at Ban Namuken in northern Khao Lak. Reports indicated that there were a large number of victims on the Phi Phi Islands, so rescue teams were sent there on December 31st. On January 1st, 2005, several bodies were recovered. It was a somber New Year's Day. Afterwards, at the request of local residents, the island of Takuapa was searched and rescue efforts continued until January 7th. On December 31st, medical examinations began, with medical care being administered at the Bannamuken Village Elementary School and a local refugee camp housing 3,500 people. A mobile medical team was also formed to provide medical care to residents in mountainous areas. Due to the difficulty involved in identifying the badly damaged bodies, a team of body identification specialists were dispatched to the site. Fingerprinting and other identification technologies aided in the process. The eastern section of Sri Lanka also suffered heavy damage. Remarkably, the JDR medical team arrived in the capital city of Colombo on December 27th, just one day after the tsunami struck. After arrangements and preparations were completed, treatment of victims began on December 30th at a medical station set up at the Al-Hirar Elementary School in Kalamanai, located in eastern Ampara. The site, located at about a 10-minute walk from the shoreline, also served as a refugee camp for some 600 people. Every morning, patients lined up in front of the tent, eagerly awaiting medical care. Because the refugees were living in such crowded conditions, there were worries about possible outbreaks of contagious diseases. So, apart from caring for patients' individual needs, much energy was spent on educating people about public sanitation. Placards were made by hand, and children were taught games that emphasized the importance of regularly washing their hands. Once the JDR team finished its primary duties, operation of the medical center was entrusted to a Japanese and an American NGO. The Republic of Maldives consists of hundreds of small low-lying coral islands. The country is underdeveloped, and damage to the islands was correspondingly heavy. The JDR medical team left Japan on December 29th and arrived at the capital city of Male the day after. Even on the island of Muli, 140 kilometers from Male, the JDR medical team was able to begin examining victims as early as January 1st. The local hospital on Muli Island was badly damaged by the tsunami. On January 2nd, the team split into two groups and made medical rounds on neighboring islands. The groups visited different islands in the morning and the afternoon. In addition to providing for various medical needs, they held meetings with local medical workers to instruct them on how to best provide medicine to islands whose supplies had been depleted. The teams were able to deliver advanced medical care to many victims on several different islands. In these many ways, JICA swiftly launched assistance activities in the areas affected by the Sumatran earthquake and Indian Ocean tsunami. JICA was also able to administer emergency medical relief in each country afflicted by this disaster, according to each country's unique circumstances. This was the largest emergency medical operation that JICA's Japan disaster relief teams had ever undertaken. Among those who supported the efforts of the JDR teams were members of the Japan Overseas Cooperation Volunteers, JOCV. Support also came from local residents of disaster-hit countries who were familiar with Japan because of their past participation in JICA activities in Japan. Current and former JOCV members utilized their language abilities to interpret at sites where JDR teams were operating. Local residents of disaster-stricken areas who were familiar with Japan also came forth and voiced their desire to help. These people assisted in various local activities, and without their help, the JDR teams would not have been able to perform their duties as efficiently as they did. Mr. Hassan Basri visited Japan in 2000 to attend JICA's Youth Invitation Program and spoke to JICA staff excitedly while displaying his JICA certificate. Hassan assisted in coordinating efforts for the Indonesian Emergency Assistance Team. As it turns out, Hassan contacted the Indonesian JICA office as soon as the tsunami hit. JICA training programs are definitely building strong bridges between Japan and other countries. As soon as the tsunami struck Sri Lanka, many JOCV members in that country also volunteered and started visiting refugee camps. At the refugee camps, the volunteers sang songs, put on puppet shows, and provided numerous other recreational activities for the children there. By providing these activities to the children, volunteers not only entertained them, but also helped to heal their hearts, which were scarred by the trauma they had all experienced. Mr. Yoshitake Sone, who once taught cultivation techniques in Sri Lanka as a JOCV member, explains why he got involved.
津波以降、やはりいろいろな悲惨な状況も見てまいりまして、はい、ボランティアとして以上何かできないんだろうかというようなことから、こういうことを始めるきっかけとなりました。慣れない避難所生活の中で子どもたちがすごいストレスを溜めているという話も聞きました。それで、シンハラ語を話せる隊員が何かできることはないかなということで、では心のケアをやってみようと思いました。
These volunteer activities continued until March, when other former JOCV members replaced them. As a matter of fact, all of the short-term volunteers in Sri Lanka are former JOCV members. One such volunteer is Ms. Yokoyama, who was active as a JOCV member until 7 years ago. During that time, she lived and served in Sri Lanka.
自分の住んでいたところがかなり被災をしていたので、今まで本当に活動していた時はいろいろスリランカ人の方にも助けていただいたので、今度は私たちがまたできることをする番かなと思って。
For these volunteers, working in these refugee camps is a way for them to pay back a debt of gratitude to the Sri Lankan people for the kindness they showed them in the past. Ensuring a smooth transition from emergency relief to reconstruction assistance is an integral aspect of disaster relief. During the reconstruction support phase, there is of course a focus on rebuilding local infrastructure, but it is also extremely important to care for the survivors' mental and emotional needs, in addition to giving support for the basic needs of people's daily lives. At JICA, we pay attention to both hard and soft needs. And in order to do this effectively, the first step in any disaster relief operation is a proper inspection of the disaster site. On March 14th, inspection began in Indonesia. The inspection team that arrived in Jakarta first met with the National Development Planning Agency.
Yeah, I think we are satisfied with the organizations of JICA URRP team, yeah, because the JICA team is very well organized and very focused, and from the beginning we have good cooperations with JICA team. Thank you for our cooperation. Thank you to JICA team, and thank you also to help Achenese people. Thank you.
On March 15th, the team traveled to Aceh to inspect the extent of the damage there. Although nearly 3 months had passed since the tsunami struck, the situation had not changed much. Even worse, the sewage system was still unusable. Situations like this must be attended to as quickly as possible by first devising proper support plans. JICA also sponsored a donor conference. In order to provide the best disaster support possible, it is crucial that JICA and organizations from other countries work to improve communication among themselves and to deepen their understanding of host countries. The tsunami had washed away an iron bridge located along a section of the Western Shoreline Road. In its place, a temporary bridge was installed. Because this heavily damaged Western Shoreline Road was a vital component of the area's transportation network, reconstruction work had to be expedited. Boats that had been washed ashore by the tsunami were still stranded on land. With so many boats unavailable for use, many local fishermen were unable to go out to sea. Just as important as the need to repair infrastructure is the need to support the restoration of people's livelihoods. The inspection team conducted a detailed survey of the city and returned to Japan on March 19th. The head of the inspection team, Mr. Nakamura, said,
このサポートプログラムがそういった被災者の皆さんに役立つように頑張っていければというふうに実感しました。ともかくスピードを重視して、やる必要があるということを認識しています。
The scene in Kalamanai was quite similar. Little had been done to repair the destruction caused by the disaster. Much of the landscape was left untouched. In eastern Sri Lanka, damaged bridges were inspected. Many of the bridges in the area were extremely dangerous since they had simply been rebuilt over old bridges that collapsed during the tsunami. Schools also sustained heavy damage. Members of a local NGO were working hard to repair schools. In the meantime, classes were being held in temporary tents, such as these. Schools damaged as badly as this one will receive assistance for reconstruction or repairs. In the Maldives, islands located further away from the capital were still in dire need of assistance. Once again, the urgency of the situation demanded that preliminary inspections for reconstruction support be conducted swiftly. JICA did not perform inspections in the western area of Thailand because of the government's desire that reconstruction efforts be managed by Thailand itself. These careful and detailed inspections allowed for accurate decisions as to what type of reconstruction support was truly needed. Much of the reconstruction work in Indonesia was handled through the cooperative efforts of the Community Reconstruction Program and local NGOs. This system provided support and care for people according to their individual needs, with the goal of enabling them to become self-sufficient again. It also promoted education on public sanitation. The program helped to construct toilets as well as bathing and washing areas. It also sponsored workshops that taught local residents how to build and operate fishing boats, and also instructed them in sewing and microfinance. These activities meaningfully contributed to the reconstruction of communities. JICA President Sadako Ogata visited a camp where the Community Reconstruction Program is operating on July 9, 2005. President Ogata conversed directly with refugees at the camp and listened to their stories individually. President Ogata also inspected a wastewater treatment facility in Banda Aceh. When Ms. Ogata made her visit, the reconstruction work was proceeding at an excellent pace. In December, the work was safely completed and control of the facility was handed over to local residents. Many important property records were lost or destroyed in the disaster. Specialists were needed to investigate and correctly identify property lines, and Japan was able to share its expertise in this area. Although the government of Thailand decided to manage its own reconstruction efforts, it did request technical assistance from several countries for training and instruction in a variety of fields. JICA has significant experience with disaster recovery efforts even within Japan, having provided recovery support after the 1995 Kobe earthquake and the 1993 earthquake and tsunami in southwestern Hokkaido. Building upon the lessons learned from these experiences, JICA conducted workshops to share Japanese methods of dealing with natural disasters. The workshops were highly praised by all who attended. Efforts were also made to provide support for the many schools in Sri Lanka that were damaged by the tsunami. A total of 182 schools in Sri Lanka were destroyed. Japan is responsible for rebuilding 13 of these schools, the first of which will reopen in late December. Through the Education Improvement Program, schools that were partially or completely destroyed are being rebuilt through the cooperation of teachers, parents, and the local community. JICA also provides support for communities desiring to move their entire village away from a disaster site. Such a move is by no means simple, and a number of factors must be addressed, including land usage and people group differences. JICA also conducted a pilot project workshop for livelihood reconstruction support. In the Maldives, disaster training instruction that is normally used in Japanese schools proved extremely useful. On the island of Fonado, disaster response training was included as part of a program to help islanders become more self-sufficient. This song was created by Japanese elementary school students in the city of Mihama in Aichi Prefecture. It is called Oha Shimo. The song teaches that in a disaster, No pushing, no running, no talking, and no returning. This song was translated into the local language and performed for the whole community, thus turning a Japanese children's song into a practical educational tool in another part of the world. JICA also conducted reconstruction support in Japan. 30 disaster prevention officials from 15 countries were invited to Japan to take part in a training seminar on tsunami early warning systems. Japan has devoted considerable resources to the study of tsunami prediction and preparedness, and used the seminar to share this knowledge with other countries. The seminar was well received by attendees, and JICA has decided to host another related seminar in January 2006. When JICA assists local NGOs in the tsunami-affected countries, it does so with the goal of helping its residents become self-sufficient and independent. A year has passed since the tsunami struck, and we must ask whether or not disaster victims are benefiting from the support they received from JICA. Kairani, who lives in a refugee camp in Banda Aceh, Indonesia, recently started selling sweets to people in the cafeteria, as well as around the city. A local NGO proposed this idea to her, and with support from JICA, she was able to buy an oven for her business. Kairani says, "While I was living in the refugee camp, I started thinking that I really wanted to do something more with my days here." According to Kairani's friend Ratunawati, "We are not making sufficient profits yet, but at least I don't have to nag my husband for money anymore, so that feels nice." In northern Banda Aceh, close to 100 boats that were docked when the tsunami hit were washed inland. Mr. Arumira, a village chief, explained, "Thanks to support from JICA and other groups, we have been able to buy 29 fishing boats. Presently, we are able to earn the same income through fishing as we were before the disaster." Though complete recovery will take more time, there is a sense that the support provided thus far has started to benefit the region.